What up, guys? My name is James Rico, and I am a writer, director, DP, editor, and business owner. I've been specializing in music videos for the last 12 years, and it's led us to this series called Your Lighting Sucks Because. This is a series that is dedicated to help you improve your own lighting techniques in your photography and videography. And some of the things that we're going to focus on today is about shadows. The first thing that we think about if our lighting sucks is it flat? Your lighting sucks because it's flat. How do we get over creating flat lighting? Well, let's get into it. The first thing that you want to do when I approach a scene would be create lighting with drama. What does that mean? You want shadows. You embrace your shadows, right? So, for example, if I use my own key light that I have here and I start pulling it around, you see that it starts to fill in this side of my face. Before, as I push it away and more at a 45, I create this nice shadow on my face. Again, you could see shadow, less shadow. Let me show you some more examples that I've done in past music videos. So here we have a video with Rod Wave called December, and he's sitting in the living room, and I could have chose to top light him. I could have chose to pull this light around more, but you see that there's such deep and rich shadows because the light is on the opposite side of his face. Instead of putting it directly in front of him and filling in both sides, I pull it on the left side of his face, and it creates this really cool shadow here. This particular scene, he was in front of a fire, so you know we had the fire flicker effect as well to kind of help sell that idea. This is another shot from that video where the light is on the right side. You see that the shadows are not as deep, but she has her key light coming from this window on the back right side of her. In that same scene, this is the same lighting here. So we kind of have similar looks, but different positions. Again, lighting is on the opposite side of the talent wrapped around. And again, we have this really beautiful one where I pulled the camera around just a little bit more so I could see more of this highlights, less of the shadows, but still you see that the lighting is on the right side of her body and the casting shadows to the left side. And a little bit of tips of what we're doing inside the scene. There's a window to the right of her. We're putting diffusion in front of that window and then adding our own light, an HMI. You could use anything similar to that, to like a 1200D, or even something as small as a 600 aperture or a 300 aperture would give you some punch. Maybe obviously not as much as this, but the reason why you'd use a larger fixture in this case would be to add the diffusion in front of it and still keep your output on your light. The next tip that you want to think about to reduce flat lighting is shooting on that shadow side of your subject. So what does that mean? Well, again, this is my shadow side, so I should be shooting from on this side. And that's probably the easiest and quickest tip when approaching a scene, to think, where do you want your key light, or what is your background going to be, and then put your key lighting on the opposite side of that subject, because you're going to place your camera over here. So if I want my camera to look this way, then I'm probably going to place my lighting on this side. Let's see some examples of this as well. You kind of saw it in these examples here that I showed you both times. Camera's on the shadow side. Camera's on the shadow side, even though it's still pulled around. It's more on the left than the right. Again, it's all the way 90 degrees profile on this one. This is a good example of not being on the shadow side, but because the shadows are so deep, it still has good contrast. Here's an example of being on the shadow side. This is a video that I shot with Coyle Ray and Real Goats, and this song was more dramatic. One of her earlier songs that she was talking about her feelings and anxiety itself, and so it warranted more dramatic lighting. You kind of see that there's the Rembrandt lighting here, just kind of like this nice little triangle underneath her eye. Similarly, another example, I'm almost directly in front of her, you know, but her face is tilted towards lighting, so you're able to see, similar to like how I'm being lit right now. Lighting is coming from this 45 degree, giving her this nice shadow. Another cool example is from this video that was directed by Nick Mays called "If I Want You" by DDG. These were probably one of my favorite ones that I've directed with Nick, because we went almost all night, and you see that the window lighting is coming from the left side of him here. As if I turned around, it'd be on my right side, but because we're in the mirror, it's on the left. I'm still shooting from the shadow side here. Same idea here. This is more of an extreme look where we're blasting a couple of HMIs into the room to create these really intense rays, and I'm still here on the shadow side. And the fact that we can see into his skin still has a lot to do with like the dynamic range of the camera. It has a lot to do with the fact that the lighting is just bouncing around in the room, hitting the walls and coming back to him. We could have probably filled in more if we wanted to by adding smaller units, but because the way we were shooting the scene, he was going to get up and we wanted to be mobile, so we kept all units out. Kind of see here, you know, what it feels like, again, shooting on the shadow side. He's like almost completely silhouetted here. A lot of drama. Again, shadow side. I could have went either side of him here because he's profiled to camera, so I could have been the left or right, but I chose this side because it just felt like a better background. Okay. The next tip to keep your lighting from sucking is reduce your fill and use negative fill. So again, embracing the main tip is embracing shadows. Stop filling in so much with your light and take away. This is kind of a cool example here. I'm gonna take this white, just like bounce here, and you see that the light from over here is bouncing and filling in this part of my face. All right? As I take it away, it's gone. As I come back, it gets filled in. Now, a lot of times it's kind of like, again, it's a taste thing, how much you want to fill in. But I feel as if people that are starting in their earlier days are often feeling like they're just gonna put a light on the left and the right, and they're just gonna blast the talent, and that's where they don't really need to. If they put it on one side and then just use a white bounce, it will reflect backlight, which is going to be like more natural and soft. And then if for some reason there's too much light, like when you're outside and it's just bouncing all over the place, or if you're in a room where there's white walls or there's lighter walls, it's better to then add in a negative. A lot of times on interviews, it's really nice to just put up a solid black, maybe they're called 4x4s, or you could just put up a black sheet. If you don't have the ability to do that, put up a black sheet. If you don't have the money to do it and you're an individual, buy a black sheet from Target. Put it on two makeshift stands and put it right next to them. Just put it right on the edge. I'm going to show you an example here of some negative fill. Here, again, like I talked about, this is from No Condom by DaBaby. We shot this in LA, and this is sunset, so you can see the background is really intense, and the sky looks beautiful though. We're keeping all of our detail. Our talent looks beautiful because they're kind of in the shade, but our hot key is over here, and then we have a big diffusion frame on the left side of Baby here. Because he's in the shade, we're pushing. I want to say we're pushing 4K through this and just softening it out. It could have been, in terms of the diffusion, maybe a quarter grid, to kind of keep this nice sharpness to it. And then on the right side, because he's outside, lighting is bouncing everywhere. I believe we probably have like an 8 by frame. It could have been, I don't remember exactly this time, but sometimes if you don't have enough tools or people, you can do what they call a T-bone, and you just put, you create a T with your frame, and you put it on one stand and just drape your sheet down. Again, if you're outside and you don't have the money, same thing, grab a sheet, put it up, and then walk it in as much as you can. And it creates this really cool, deep, rich shadow outside. This is something that you could tell when you watch videos or movies, that the lighting looks this nice. It's because they shaped it. If you go outside and you point your camera and you shoot it and it looks ugly, that's because you're not shaping your lighting. So again, using negative fill can help increase that. I got one more example here. Let's see here. Kind of here is the same thing. We were in this room, and it's a small room. We're blasting an HMI through the window. It's bouncing around everywhere. So to get more of this rich shadow, we had to bring just a solid 4x4 up close and right on the edge. My shot is in the close-up, so pretty tight lens, and I'm on like a 50 here, and 50 millimeter on a Super 35 camera, so it's about like an 85 on a full frame, and it's so tight that you can walk that black solid right in. Okay. And the last thing that I would say for you to do, the last thing I would say for you to do is to don't forget your edge light, okay? Don't forget your edge light. If I turn this off, I'm gone. I'm being sucked into the background. I'm not being separated from it. If I turn it back on, I'm now separated from my background. That is one of the easiest tips to remember, to add that last little bit of your edge. You can make your edge light roughly a stop over your key light. So if you use your handy dandy Sekonic 858 DU Speedmaster, and you have your settings exactly what your camera is going to be. About a 4 here on my face. Oh. And you know, I'm actually a 4 on my head. So these are even. This is what it looks like to be even on my key and here. I thought I had it about to stop over, but I guess I didn't. Now you know. Let me show you some examples of your edge light. Again, this goes back to some examples from DDG's If I Want You. I'll give you some times where we used the edge light and other times where we didn't. We're in this all black space outside. The camera needs light. We got to pump it in. And so you see the edge light on the car here. It's a black car. So everything is just down. If we wanted to see more of this front side of the car, we should have balanced and fill in just to see more detail, you know. We see that everything's being edged here as it gets out. You know, you see that light hitting and reflecting here really nice. And here is an example of not having an edge light. So when we were doing this, we set up our light kind of all in the same direction and sort of manipulated it and tweaked it as we went around. With music videos, a lot of times you're moving quickly and you're trying to set lighting to where you don't have to move it as often and kind of get a lot of looks out of one. A lot of looks out of one lighting setup. So here, when we came around, I should have thought, okay, as a DP, I should have thought, let me just put a light here on the back left side. And because we have all these practicals in the background from streetlights, people would have thought it was coming from those. So I could have easily edged this out a little bit more. Again, you see the difference. This is edged and the other one isn't. This is some, again, examples of when we get in front of him. We could have added an edge light over here. You know, this flare is coming from the car. But you see how deep and rich the shadow is. It looks really cool, but we probably could have popped him out just a little bit more and gave him some love. Let's see here. Again, I'll go back to this last little part because I want to show this one. Again, this is the edge light. You actually see the lighting in the frame here, but it looks so cool because we're using anamorphic lenses. This is the only reason why it looks this way is because it's anamorphic. It's widescreen. But you see that we're on the shadow side and we're edging him out. Our key light's over here on this side, kind of giving him a little bit more love. So whenever the flare isn't actually hitting him, we see more detail on all this black. It's an awesome frame. I think it looks really cool, but we could have probably done some more on some of these other shots to help give it that same edge. And then another example that I thought was really great is this. We don't bring an edge light on this. Sometimes when I'm shooting, I would get to this. I got to this point of where like I try to avoid using an edge light because I was like, oh, you don't use the edge light because it's not as realistic or something. Like you're not always having edge lights on you, so I don't always mind not having it. But in this particular case, he probably could have used a light on the right side to help edge him out so that he kind of gets out of this dark sky. We're having to light everything in this parking lot. Pablo Lopez, Lip by Drip, was the gaffer on this and did an amazing job. We had a small team and we worked quickly. Our lighting, because it's hitting him here, is actually extended out on a pole, on a boom pole, and it's being lit from right here, just right above frame. I believe we have like a light mat here. And then I'm pretty sure we have a 4K blasting all this stuff over here. And Pablo did a good job at kind of softening it up to where he closed the barn doors on it, kind of kept the lighting from being down here just to keep some more shadows, and then softening it a little to where it's not so just directly harsh. On top of that, we have Brian Smaller as a colorist, who's an amazing colorist, and he did his thing to help shape it and manipulate it a little bit more. The last things I'll say is I'm going to show you some examples of daylight using shadow side. This is just daylight. This is natural lighting. Didn't do anything at all. Just shot at the right moments. I'm shooting on shadow side. Again, shadow side. Positioning talent to look the way that the sun is. This is completely silhouetting them, but you could see like you still get really beautiful images from doing that. It's right at sunset. Again, another examples of shooting shadow side of the subject, allowing them to look out and away from camera, not directly at camera, so you could still see detail. Again, you see it better here in this frame, where when he's looking a certain direction, everything's just so dark and rich, and it looks beautiful. Here's an example of daylight shooting shadow side of the subject, and just using literally the sun itself, and then the fact that you can actually see them is just from a bounce, a white bounce. Instead of taking the light away, we need to add it in because their skin is darker. So we probably could have pushed it a little bit more just to pop it, but it looks pretty natural. It looks great. Here's an example again, lighting from the opposite side. Someone could have easily just showed up and put the light right in front of him on the right side. I chose the left because the sun was setting in this direction. So it kind of feels like it's either coming from the house or the sun itself. But he's being edged out here. We're edging him out. We're shooting on the shadow side of his face. That is like tripping me up here. Again here, sun's on the left side of him, positioning him this way, putting the camera on this side too, and it's creating some shape. This is from Babyface Ray's. Babyface Ray, we shot this in Detroit. Super small team. I think it was like 5 of us at most. We rented everything in Detroit. Detroit was awesome. This was like a really famous house that he records at. Again, this is straight on, but the light is on the left side. Paying attention to where lighting's hitting, making sure that there is some really good drama in it. Let's see here. Last ones I want to show you here. I want to show you a little bit about the last thing I'll show you an example of when I didn't maintain consistency in my lighting. This is right here from the same video as Anxiety from Coil Ray. And, you know, I wish I could have maintained some of these deeper shadows in these other scenes. But this is me not adding in enough negative fill. I could have kept this really rich. I could have kept the walls down a little bit more, but I didn't add it there. Here's another example of when I kind of kept the consistency. I'm putting the light on the right side of her, giving her a back edge through the window, making it green, using color contrast, and then still keeping these really rich, dramatic